Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here on my next Sword Art Online 2 episode review. This one's going to be for episode 13, Phantom Bullet. Second last episode of this Phantom Bullet arc. And yeah, this was a really good episode. This is definitely one of the best of the entire arc so far. What I really like about it is that just a lot of stuff happens. It didn't have the same pacing problems that some of the previous episodes have had. I just really felt like they got a lot done in this episode. Like the first 7 minutes, they just devote entirely to resolving the kind of in-game stuff, basically. And then the second half of the episode is focusing on, okay, we've dealt with the in-game issue of Death Gun. We still have to resolve the outside stuff in the real world. So that was really well done, how everything kind of came together. But yeah, let's get into some more details here. The fight, ultimately it isn't. There's no huge amount of fighting done. Like it is resolved in the first 7 minutes of the episode. The key to this whole thing is Kirito, like, not remembering the names of the people he killed, not remembering this person who he potentially could have killed, who was there trying to kill him, and kind of represents a lot of the issues that he's dealing with. And Sinon even says as much. He gives her strength to jump back into the fight even with her kind of broken scope, because Kirito is fighting the person who represents kind of what he's dealing with. And I like how in the end he just kind of accepts that it wasn't that he just forgot, it was that he kind of forced himself to forget. He didn't want to know, he wanted to just forget about this issue, but obviously he's come to accept that he needs to know, and that's part of the main thing. Sinon has always wanted to forget about what she did, but Kirito has come to accept that just full on accepting it, and accepting that it was a part of your life is important to kind of moving past it. And so he remembers that in the briefing before the attack, they got reports on all of the leaders, and he remembers the red eyes of Death Gun and links that to the red eyes of one of the Laughing Coffin members, Red Eyes Zaza. And so in the middle of the fight, that basically saves him from being kind of killed in-game by Death Gun. And from there, you just basically get into the final battle sequence of the fight. And that is that Sinon jumps into action. Even without her scope, she manages to use all of her skill to aim a bullet line at Death Gun and keep it trained on him enough to basically force him to go into invisibility. And then Kirito jumps into his final attack, realizing this is the only chance to beat him. And what I really like about this final sequence of the fight is that you think it's just going to be one final sword move that ends it, but he kind of feints with the first sword move and then kind of moves back, takes his gun out and kind of takes down the invisibility that way, and then uses the sword and kind of ends the fight. I like how they constantly reference the fact that it's a gun game, and Kirito really hasn't used the gun all that much in the game. You've seen him maybe running forward with the sword a few times and kind of using it, but this is the first time we've really seen him kind of strategically in battle use the gun effectively, and I like that it was him accepting using the gun that kind of won him the fight in the end, and that ends Death Gun in the game. But then Death Gun basically dies saying, he'll come after you, and it's obviously a reference to what we kind of find out about in the Alicization arc and stuff like that, and a little bit in the next episode. But that ends that, and then the way they end the bullet tournament with only Sinon and Kirito left is that Sinon reveals that actually two people can win if it ends in a tie, and they just use the grenade to kind of double suicide each other, and they both win the tournament. Which leads into the second half of the episode, which focuses basically completely on Asuna waking up after the tournament. But the only thing I want to talk about in the first half of the episode before then is we did have some scenes in the hospital of Asuna and I suppose Yui over the phone helping Kirito. I liked kind of Yui's suggestion to hold his hand, and then Asuna says no, you can hold his hand too, he'll realize it. And then during the kind of final blow sequence, um, you do get that moment where Kirito kind of realizes that Asuna is there supporting him, and it helps give him the strength to actually continue. Because the whole idea here is that the reason he has any strength in this situation dealing with this issue is because he knows he's protecting people, and the main reason Asuna is not in this game is because he really wants to protect her, given what happened in like the fairy dance arc and stuff like that. So that was really well done. The way it just they showed her there supporting him, and it made her important in the end, despite her not being like the main character of this arc. But yeah, the second half of this episode was it's really interesting. It has similar ways to some of the way the kind of fairy dance arc ends, with obviously the kind of sexual assault kind of nature of the situation. Um, but again, I feel it was kind of maturely done. I kind of always will give the show some sort of this respect for going for this kind of real heavy stuff at the end. That the way they set up Kyoji at the end is that he's this completely obsessive character. You realize he's a bit, out of his mind, psychotic, and they kind of explain in some of the way he talks kind of where that comes from. But the way that they make it kind of feel realistic, because it's not just him acting like a cartoon villain, it's him kind of acting like a real life kind of evil person and doing this to Xenon and stuff like that. And um, there's just some really interesting stuff. Like, this reveal in many ways comes out of nowhere, because you only have slight hints up until this moment that he in any way is part of the evilness of this thing going on. He's a little bit obsessive about her in previous episodes, trying to start the romantic relationship. But nothing really went as far as to say, like, oh, this is getting a bit really creepy. Because she was kind of like, okay, I'm in the middle of something right now, but maybe afterwards. And she isn't really like heavily kind of like, I'm super uncomfortable right now, backing away. But here, that fully comes out because you see the extent to which he is obsessed with her. And I like how, even though it's left for the moment where it's revealed for him to explain kind of why he's evil, um, I thought the explanation was really well done. The voice acting from Johnny Young Bosch as Kyoji here was very well done to explain where it all came from. That, okay, Red Eye Zaza is Kyoji's older brother. They've established throughout the show up to now that if you're a red player in the game, especially SAO, that tells a lot about who the person is in like real life. So obviously when SAO ended, Zaza must have kind of had some sort of an impact on Kyoji and kind of turned him the way he is now. And obviously this plan came together from the two of them. And the other thing obviously would be that Kyoji mentions that the reason he became so interested in her initially, because we established at the start of this arc that she's only just recently kind of moved to this town, and so the two of them haven't really known each other that long. But the reason he showed so much interest in her is because he knew about the event where, when she was younger, she killed a robber. And he saw that not as this kind of tragic event in her life, but he saw that in his mind as her being a real life, powerful, strong person because she killed someone who was evil. And the only interest he had in her is because she had killed someone in real life. And so he kind of equates that to real strength rather than kind of what the whole arc has been leading towards, in that the real strength of the situation is not that you were able to kill someone, is that you did what you needed to do to protect someone. That's kind of the difference between the kind of heroes and villains of this whole arc. So yeah, I kind of like that as getting the obsession out of the way, in that he only in many ways likes her because she has killed someone. He sees that as something interesting about her, rather than, for her, it's this really tragic event that she's been wanting to forget and has now come to accept and kind of move on from, but we still have to resolve that fully. But Yeah, it's a interesting scene because they've been playing up this whole idea about Sinon in game is powerful, Asada outside of the game is not. That's the way she feels. And when Kyoji obviously turns and like she rejects his advances and he's trying to force himself on her, she is not really fighting back. She's very much kind of afraid and not willing to fight. And then I really like the scene of kind of in Asada's mind, the inner Asada Sinon thing, that we've seen this image a few times of just this very vulnerable Asada kind of in her mind and the way she sees herself and how she sees herself as strong as Sinon. We've seen that kind of vulnerability there with her before, about how there's this big gap between in-game and real life for her. And Kirito has kind of shown her that he has strength in both and kind of can transfer one between the other. And Sinon then comes into her mind. So you have the two of them, the two kind of aspects of who she is in her mind. And I really like how it's the moment where the kind of two become one. It doesn't just become Asada is the scared side of me, Sinon is the kind of brave side of me. It's just that these are two parts of me that are the same. The virtual person is me, the real person is me. These are two aspects of me. And the inspiration again is that she fights back not for herself, which is kind of what she's been doing in the game, this very kind of selfish kind of thing that she's been doing. Kill all the players in the game to prove herself to be powerful, to get over her fear of guns. She fights back in this situation because she fears that Kirito is going to come and basically see what's going on, and he will be put in danger in real life because of the kind of what they said to each other just before the end of the game. And so she fights back here to basically try and protect Kirito, to protect someone, which she doesn't realize it just yet, which is exactly what she did when she shot the robber in kind of her big event in her past. So I really like the writing here and how everything's connecting together. It's this really serious and heavy scene, but they're dealing with some really interesting character stuff here, and you see her fight back. And then the episode ends with the door opening and Kirito comes flying through, and she realizes it's him. And I think that's a really important moment because it's another thing that shows that she can realize the power that he had in game, and she can also realize in the way he like talked the second he came in, the strength of him in real life as well. And I thought it was just a really strong way to end the episode. You know, the knee to the face of Kyoji, and you initially think it's over, but obviously it still rolls into the next episode. Yeah, I just thought it was a very strong episode. The way the whole second half of the episode, the way it was heavy into the character stuff. I like the action in the first half of the episode, and I suppose the only scene I haven't talked about is the scene just before they kind of the tournament ends. I like how it's come from it being this rivalry to the two actually trusting each other enough to kind of give each other their real names and Sinon say what her actual address is to him. I thought that was really well done. How it took basically the whole arc for them to really trust each other and come together as a team. The whole fist bump from last episode and then it coming back here shows that. But yeah, that has been the review for episode 13 of SAO II. In the comments, let me know your thoughts on the episode. I will probably get my review of episode 14 out tomorrow, and then more realistically, the overview of the Phantom Bullet arc will probably be on Tuesday because Monday I'll have a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles episode review. So that is the schedule for Sword Art Online videos, and then obviously later next week I'll start the Excalibur arc, which is the next episodes and stuff like that. But yeah, that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.